Good evening. At this time, I would like to call the meeting of the City Council Housing Authority and successor agency to the Redevelopment Agency to order, and to turn this time over to the City Attorney for a report on the closed session.
Mayor, council members, and members of the public, we only had one closed session item this evening, which is public employee performance evaluations. There's no reportable action.
Thank you, Councilor. Again, welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. We will adjourn this meeting to a meeting on Monday, February 27th. For those of you who don't know, we typically have meetings on the first Monday and the third Monday, but because of the holiday, we will be meeting on the fourth Monday, I believe. February 27th this year will take place in the council chambers located at 505 South Gary here in the city of Pomona. Closed session items will be discussed at 5:30 p.m. The open session will commence at 7 p.m. I want to remind everyone to please turn off your phones or silence them. Also, there's no eating in city council chambers. Certainly if you have water, that's fine, but there is no eating. And so at this time, I'd like to ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. City Council Member Nora Garcia will lead us in the pledge.
Please place your right hand over your heart. Those who are active or retired military, a salute is appropriate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Just want to let you know that if you do require Spanish interpretation, we do have a bilingual interpreter. She is right there. If you are speaking during public comments or on an item this evening, our interpreter must provide translation for you at the podium. If you need any help, if you need the device, that device is available to you through her. City Clerk?
Thank you, Mayor. Si usted requiere interpretación en español, tenemos un intérprete bilingüe. Es necesario que el intérprete interpreta en el podio si usted va a hablar durante el tiempo del comentario público o va a comentar sobre uno de los temas encontrados en la agenda. Por favor, levante su mano en este momento si requiere interpretación en español. Adicionalmente, tenemos equipo de interpretación disponible en el vestíbulo.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I'd like to ask you to please call the roll.
Councilmember Nolte?
Here.
Councilmember Preciado? Here. Councilmember Garcia? Here. Councilmember Lustro?
Here.
Councilmember Torres?
Here.
Vice Mayor Ontiveros Cole?
Here.
Mayor Sandoval.
I am here. Next item.
Our next item is presentations, and our first presentation this evening is Black History Month proclamation.
Okay, I don't see it here.
If we can return to that item, Mayor.
So
we're waiting on
I'll
that.
let you handle that, and why
Okay.
don't we go ahead and go with the AQMD presentation?
No problem.
Okay?
Okay.
Oh, that was quick. Mayor, welcome.
Good morning, good evening, Mayor, council members, great to see you, staff, residents. Michael Cacchiotti, council member from the historic city of South Pasadena, founded 2 months after Pomona, but very similar, 1888 March. I'm your representative on the South Coast Air Quality Management District, one of the largest air pollution districts in the nation, and I represent the 34 cities from Santa Clarita, Burbank, Glendale, all the way across the 210, the 10, the 60 out to Claremont and Pomona. I sit on some regional agencies with, I know Steve is on the Gold Line, sit on the Gold Line JPA with you, and it's a pleasure. So again, this is kind of the boundaries that I represent, and let's go on. So this is the total boundaries of the South Coast AQMD, Air Quality Management District. 17 million people, 4 counties, LA, Orange, San Bernardino, Riverside County. We have 28,000 permitted sources, could be landfills, could be oil refineries, oil digging operations, water treatment plants, etc. On the left, it was founded actually in 1977. There was 4 separate air pollution districts, LA, Orange, San Bernardino, Riverside, and they came together to form the South Coast AQMD. And if you look at the bottom, these are all the sources of pollution. Some of them, the ships coming in, heavy-duty trucks in the warehouses and industry, Pomona, Arcadia, all throughout here in the Inland Empire. Here's really the source of pollution. On the left, there's either stationary, we break it into 2. Stationary on the left, you see there's solvents, paints, etc., auto body, paint shops, gas stations, the vapors that come out, power plants, refineries. On the right, they're heavy duty. 80% of our pollution is from mobile sources. the ships that come in with the goods, airplanes, trains, trucks, off-road equipment, and the lawnmowers used at your home or at the cities or your soccer fields, and cars and trucks. Here's the issue with pollution. On the left is smog, and that's formed when you get the NOx from your exhaust pipes of your cars, your lawnmowers, your trucks, your planes, everything. The trains that stop right here. I got off the train a few minutes ago at Pomona, and those Metrolink trains even pollute a little bit. On the right is the particulate matter. This is really dangerous. If you look, that gray stick looks like that's your human hair, 50 to 70 microns. On the left is a piece of sand at the beach. But look at those little blue circles. That's PM 2.5. And the bigger blue one right there by the gray is your PM10, the dust and stuff. But when 2.5, it is so small that it can pass through your blood-brain barrier and cause havoc. So it's really serious consequences. And here's where we get into it. Here's why we're so passionate about pollution, because what you just saw back here, here's what it does to your body, your friends, your families, even your animals. We knew for years it did the lungs, but now we know your heart and your brain. So it impacts each one of us because it goes through the blood-brain barrier and lodges in your organs, maybe for months or maybe for years. And whether it's autism, asthma, or Alzheimer's, it's going to impact people. And there are studies coming out every week, dozens of studies about the brain just in the last couple of years. And one last week I read about the MRI. They tested about 100 adults. And actually, with MRIs, and it saw that same people exposed to nitric oxide, PM, and then the same people, they put them farther away from a freeway, and it actually interrupted the functions of the brain. So this is factual. Here's why it's serious again. On the left, each column, prevent premature death, especially as people get seniors, clogs up the arteries too. Second one, prevents hospitalizations of youth, juveniles, and adults, 8,700 a year from asthma attacks. Third one, I coach soccer. First time last year, I usually have one or two kids every couple of years that might have asthma, has an inhaler. Last year, first time I had 3 kids in my team had asthma. Several times I practiced had to stop. We practiced near the 110 freeway. Huge issue. 163,000 kids miss school or work. And on the right, it costs us $19.4 billion in health costs a year. So big impact on our health. Good news on the left, the blue line going down, pollution is going down, but with the fires the last couple of years, it's kind of leveled off, maybe gone up. The red is that's going down too. On the right, this is cancer. If you look at the top one on the right, look at how purple, a lot of cancer in 2012, but a lot of efforts by 2018 improving significantly. Progress and challenges. The bad news on the left, look at all this, trucks, planes, trains, where the goods movement right through the 60 freeway, by your city, the 71, the 10, the ships that come in, the off-road equipment. On the left, who regulates this? What if we don't meet these? There's federal clean air standards. If we don't meet them, there's serious consequences, money-wise. So EPA controls nationally and all mobile sources. CARB, the Air Resources Board, some stationary infrastructure mobile sources. We can't really, AQMD, we can't. We try to. On the right, that's us. Stationary source like I talked about before, landfills, oil refineries, et cetera. We have a lot of incentive money. On the bottom, here's what happens if we don't meet clean air standards. On the left, stationary sources, bottom. We could lose 40 to 50 million this is 40 to 50 million dollars that businesses, factories will have to pay more to clean up their emissions. In the middle, we could lose $600 to $1 billion in federal highway funding. That means on the right, the government, they come in, they've done this before. They'll say, okay, AQMD, you and all these, you could meet these federal clean air standards for ozone, particulate matter. We're going to take over. We're going to tell you, every Monday, only odd number of cars can drive on the streets. Every Tuesday, even numbers. And they've done this and draft outlines it to communities. So it's important for us to meet these. And the problem is, again, federal government controls this. But there's good news. We have a lot of money for incentive programs on the left. If you want to put in a new clean air furnace, there's a rebate program. We'll give you $1,500. Second column, residents, you want to get a nice electric lawnmower, turn in your polluting gas one. We'll give up to $250 for a self-propelled lawnmower. I've done it for 20 years. It's great. And the third one, if you get an electric car, you want to get an electric charger. I just got one. I'm going to see if I can apply for that or not. They're trying to determine, since I'm a board member, if I can. But you get $250 if you're making over a certain amount. But if you make under a certain amount, we'll give you $500. That pretty much pays for 80 to 90% of electric charger. Got to get an electrician to hook up the wires and stuff in a conduit. On the right, if you want to get rid of a dirty polluting car, you have options. Get an electric car, plug-in hybrid, hydrogen fuel cell, get transit passes forever, basically. Car sharing, or an e-bike. There's some great e-bikes out there, up to $9,500 for turning your polluting electric car. So great programs here. We'll get some stuff into the bottom, new programs coming out for appliances in your home. Road to clean air. There's a lot of money available too. We'll give you money again. Commercial landscaping. If you know some of your gardeners, there's a program right now for 70% off all types of dirty polluting equipment. Don't even have to turn in the old stuff. So the state set aside $27 million last year. We pushed for it, got it in. It's been open 3 months. They're down about 30% of the money. So if you know your gardeners, tell them there's money available now. But in March, we're going to come out with a program for cities, for counties, for school districts, for college. We have Pasadena Community College coming to South Pass Wednesday to look at a demonstration by Dan Mabe, who will demonstrate in a minute. But there's money available, so hopefully maybe your city might consider converting over. There's money for the fueling stations right there, hydrogen fuel cell, electric, vehicles, light duty, medium, heavy. Our shuttle in South Pass was paid for with some of this money. Off-road equipment, construction equipment is now electric. And you've got some of the leaf blowers right there. Dan, would you come up for a second? Mayor, with your permission, just a quick demonstration. Dan Mabe helped South Pasadena become the first in the nation to convert our soccer.
Just real quick, Chief,
Yes.
do you mind coming up as well, just in case we have any issues here with this electric leaf blower? Okay, Chief, go ahead.
This is only air. But so back in 2015, we started with one park, and then we changed it all across the parks. I coach soccer, so we wanted it on the soccer fields, baseball fields, hardscape. Dan came in and converted us over within 2 years, and now Glendale, other cities are looking at this. He was on the phone with Boulder, Colorado a few weeks ago. And you can do it, and the equipment has changed. Like electric cars, the infancy 8 or 10 years ago, this was the same. Dan, can you talk about this for a quick minute? The mayor's given us a second.
Good evening, Mayor Sandoval, Vice Mayor, council members. Dan Mabe with the American Green Zone Alliance. I just want to point out, absolutely, this operates at zero emission at the source. If you're charging it with renewables, of course, it's even cleaner. But if you're charging even with coal, it's still substantially lower pollution than operating gas. I do want to point out that substantial noise reductions and cost of operation benefits in addition to lower ground ozone pollution. We can come out, Mayor Sandoval, as we have offered before. Anytime you guys are ready, we can allow your city or the vendors for the city try this equipment before they buy it, and they can understand that it will work in their specific workloads before even purchasing it.
Dan, you're going to do a demonstration at South Pass Garfield Park?
Yes, we'll be at Garfield Park February 8th. We'll be out there at 8 a.m. Anybody's free to come by. All of this equipment will be there to try on the spot, and we will have bilingual staff as well to explain the technology and how they can incorporate it.
Mayor, can we demonstrate and blow towards you? Is that okay? Or
Yeah, I mean, unless there's any rules, should we be concerned about the people in the front? No? Okay, well, because they were looking a little nervous.
They were looking
so I just want to make sure that, yes, this just a quick demonstration.
Mayor, what I heard is that they're going to volunteer with Pomona Beautiful every Tuesday this month.
We'll take it. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, please, Dan, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Dan.
It's powerful.
thank you.
Thank you. For those of you who are coming to a city council meeting for the first time, this generally does not happen.
Thank you, Mayor. There's more money available, Mayor, clean air funds from AQMD and the Mobile Source Air Pollution Reduction Committee. There's money available there for grants. And finally, at the bottom, every city gets money every single year, and I think you have in your account, looks like $195,000. So every year from car registrations, South Pasadena, Arcadia, Monrovia, Duarte, Pomona, depending on your population, they get, so on every car registration is a $4 charge. That passed in 1990 by the legislature. It's got to be used for reducing mobile source pollution. So every city gets 40% of that $4 every year from your car registration, just like South Pass, a lot less, of course. And you can use that money however you want it to reduce mobile source pollution. Get rid of your polluting diesel trucks, cars. If you have any equipment, we've got a couple dozers and stuff like that. We've always got water breaks. So we're looking at converting over some of our off-road maintenance equipment. We've converted a couple of our public works trucks, the F-450s, F-550s, to compressed natural gas as they're coming out of electric. Now we're going to be doing that too. We've got new charging stations with that money. So every year is just get replenished. See, but you've got to use it for reducing mobile source, and they've allowed us to use it for our large riding lawnmowers we cut the parks with too, to convert over. And so there's, on the far left, we've got service for you, Mayor. If you have small businesses need assistance and maybe they've got to get a permit, you can call this number. We'll send staff out to help them. If somebody sees a burning, a car just smoking or something, an odor in the neighborhood, or a company, you see there's some weird smells coming out, call that number, 1-800-CUT-SMOG. We'll send investigators out there within a few hours. So we've been out to Hyperion water treatment plant over in Sepulveda almost every day. We get like 20 calls a day. So they're on a notice of violation, serious violation. We're trying not to close them down. We've had an agreement, the settlement, but it gets worse sometimes. The landfill out in Sunshine Canyon off the 210 in Sylmar. The last couple of weeks, we had 21 last week complaints, and we were able to establish the complaint, so they're on a violation. They get fined. If they don't clean up, then we really fine them or close them down. So there's air quality. On my way here, I got the app, and I'm on the train, Mr. Mayor. I checked, and the air quality was great. I went through in Montebello. I stopped in Industry. When I got here, air quality is great today, and checked there. Just automatically converts it over. We even have sensor training if you want to. You want to get it. People can buy sensors right now to test the air quality in your neighborhood. We'll teach you the best ones to buy. We've got the only air quality sensor performance evaluation center in the United States. And just information myself. Call me anytime. Contact me by phone. Email me. I've got my consultants here. Ben Wong is my consultant, former mayor of West Covina. Rainbow Yoon, our staff member. And any questions, Mayor? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate you being here and sharing this valuable information. So just for the council, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to either Mayor Cacciati or Ben Wong, who is his consultant. And if the public has any questions or wants to know more about the rebates or any particular information that Mayor Cacciati shared, please make sure you take down this information. Thank you so much for coming out here. We appreciate your time. And I would just say one thing, and certainly we haven't made any final decisions, but when we were going through the waste hauling contract process, one of the requests by the City Council was to explore bringing back in-house our landscape maintenance. And in so doing is looking at possibly going green across, what would it take for us to go green across our landscape maintenance team, from vehicles to the equipment. So I think we're certainly moving potentially in that direction, but we're not quite there yet. But it's certainly something we'll be coming to you to for your guidance and assistance. So, and particularly you, Dan, because I know that you work in this area.
And Mayor, Glendale started slow like this about a couple of years ago with Dan and us. We worked, they came out to South Pass, watched us, did demonstrations. They started with a park, several parks, now they're like 80%.
Wow, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so I want to go to our proclamation, and I understand that we had some issues with our proclamation in terms of being able to get it on and getting it printed. So I want to extend my apologies, but we still want to do it. And what we'll be able to do is tomorrow we'll be able to get a copy and make sure that we get it into the hands of the NAACP and the African American Advisory Alliance. But I'd still like for you to come up, okay? If I could ask the council to please come on up. Can you hear me okay? Great, great. So just want to let you know who we have with us. This is in celebration and in honor of Black History Month in the city of Pomona. This is something that we have done for some time now. And we have a representative from the NAACP, Jeanette Alice Royston. You can give her a nice big hand. And from the African American Advisory Alliance, Chara Swodek, if you give her a nice big hand. So I'll go ahead and read this, and then just give you a minute or so to just, if you want to share anything, okay? This is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Pomona, State of California, proclaiming February 2023 as Black History Month in the City of Pomona. Whereas during National Black African History Month, we celebrate the vast contributions of Black African Americans to our nation's history and identity. And whereas Black African American History Month grew out of the establishment in 1926 of Negro History Week by Carter G. Woodson and the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, and whereas the City of Pomona is deeply committed to equity and inclusion, this stance includes the cultural and racial affirmation of our students, staff, parents, and community members who identify as Black African American. And whereas the City of Pomona strives to close the equity and outcome gaps for Black African Americans through policies and practices that reflect the experiences to ensure greater access and opportunity and honor history, heritage, and contributions. And whereas our community is better because of the diversity of our population. And now, therefore, the City Council of the City of Pomona does hereby proclaim the February 2023 as Black History Month in the City of Pomona, dated this 6th day of February 2023. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for this honor. Every year, our mayor actually recognizes the African American in the City of Pomona. So I just want to have him right now, give him a hand, because every year he does this. So, and of course, his city council members. But I'm always inspired when the mayor actually witnessed that. I'm inspired because we know that the African American percentage in the City of Pomona is very low. So when I say low, I do mean low compared to other ethnic groups. So I'm always inspired, and I'm always honored that it actually gets to this point that we receive a proclamation of Black History Month. So thank you so much, Mayor, and thank you, his team, his cabinet members. Thank you all, appreciate it, and the audience here.
Thank you. Yes, the cabinet members, yes. So once again, thank you very much. And yes, as the mayor said, I am honored to be the president of our African American Advisory Alliance. We started 2 years ago in the thick of COVID. Actually, now we're at 2.5 years because it is February. So 2.5 years, June 2020, we started. And the question was always, how do we support the Black community? What can we do? And that conversation continues. It's not something that will stop anytime soon. But what I love about the Alliance is it is not one person, it's not one entity. It is really tying in together with another organization and with this business and with this person and this pastor and whatever the case may be. We have been there to support even having the space. Thank you, Council, for unanimously approving the space. Located in downtown Pomona, the Alliance Community Cultural Center. But like I've said since the very beginning, what are we building without a building? What are we building without a building? It is extremely important that we have a stakeholder in the community. We continue those conversations as a community. I'm grateful, like Lieutenant Terrell was at the Alliance Monday, and we had a conversation around policy, accountability and policy. That was fantastic. We will continue those conversations. And I'm gonna do a lone plug if you don't mind. So February 25th, we have the Freedom Fund, NAACP. It's the 4th annual.
Yes,
Is that correct? Okay, so we have the Freedom Fund going on February 25th. Later on that evening, we have Mini Mardi Gras in downtown Pomona in front of the Alliance as well. Yes, I said Mini Mardi Gras. Get some beads. And earlier that morning, we also, Pomona College is hosting their very first Black Youth Conference. So February 25th is going to be a fantastic full day. But again, I'm extremely grateful, and thank you very much for the time and the honor.
We'll get to this information.
I didn't know I can do a commercial.
Yeah. Can we have our professional photographer come and take a picture?
Do one with this one too.
Let's give our deputy city manager. City Clerk, next item.
Next item is Mayor, Councilmember Communications. These are reports on conferences, seminars, and regional meetings attended by the mayor and city council, and announcements of upcoming events, and also items for future city council consideration as requested by the mayor or members of the city council.
Okay, let me turn on my screen here to see who requests to speak. I see that Vice Mayor Ontiveros-Coe wishes to speak, and then Councilmember Garcia.
Hello and good evening to everybody. It's been a pretty busy week. I also had the honor of attending Lieutenant Terrell's wonderful meeting that he had at the Alliance Community Culture. It was a 2-hour meeting, but it went into 3 hours. That's how important this meeting was to the constituents that attended. It was well attended. Afro-American, Hispanic, Caucasian, everybody was there to listen to what our Lieutenant Commander had to say. He focused on many things, and the questions were very concerning to the people that asked them. He gave wonderful answers on community reconciliation and equity. So I was very happy to attend. Thank you very much for having me there. Also, this weekend, the Assistant League had their beautiful Valentine Tea event at the Pomona Historical Society. Many women dressed up in wonderful looking hats, and it was just something that was very well attended. The Assistant League does a lot for the community of the city. I was their nurse, one of their nurses for Pomona Unified, and so I worked very closely with this association, and this association really helps the children of the city of Pomona. They have the Operation School Bell. They have a dental clinic. If your child does not have any dental, a dentist where they can be attended to, just hook up with them at their school nurse's office, and they will be able to have an application. And if you don't have the $10 fee or the $15 fee, they will see your child for free. They do, fillings, x-rays, root canals, all kinds of things. So I think this is a very worthy association. It's been around for like 75 years in the city of Pomona. I'm looking forward to the greet and meet coming up for Senator Rubio that will be here in Pomona. And also we're having a tree planting for this weekend and the following weekend at Lincoln Park. They're looking for volunteers if you'd like to come and help out, because this is something that, we need to replenish our trees. We've lost a lot of trees over the city of Pomona for many years, and now we have trees that are available for our parks and everything. So if you can, please come down. Also, I'll be attending Dr. Vol Cultural New Lunar Year coming up also on Saturday. So, I have a pretty busy schedule, but it's really nice to be able to attend all these events to see what's going on in our city, and I'm glad that we're partnering with all of them. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Before we go on to the rest of the council, I wanted, I don't typically speak at the beginning, but I want to do that. And I also certainly want to acknowledge the rest of the council, who I'm sure want to speak on a number of different things. As I look out into the audience, I do see a lot of young people. And of course, I had a very honest and frank conversation with Eric Vasquez, who leads Justice for the Youth. As all of you know, or many of you know, this past week, last couple of weeks, we have lost over on the southeast side of the city, we lost a 17-year-old and his brother. And of course, there was a more recent incident that happened at Montclair Place where a young man, a 15-year-old, lost his life. He attended Diamond Ranch High School. I believe he's from Chino, but certainly went to Pomona schools. And to see, I saw his mother on television and the incredible pain that she is going through. I want to just let all of you know here, because I know some of you will come up and speak, and I'll have more to say, but as I shared with Eric, there's a lot more work that we have to do. And I can just tell you, and I told him, we are committed to working with you to do that. We are committed to ensure that our children in this city have the opportunity to realize their full human potential, and that they don't end up dead, they don't end up in prison, they don't end up homeless, they don't end up on the streets, they don't end up drug addicted. That is the reality. And I believe that the type of change that needs to happen doesn't happen in a day. It doesn't even happen in a week or a month, but it takes years to do this kind of transformational work. And I believe I speak for the City Council when I say we're committed to working with you to do that. In fact, the City Council 2 years ago, in fact, even before 2 years ago, understood that we needed to spend more dollars on our children, to increase funding for more programming, more activities. And in fact, when we received the monies from the ARP funds, the federal funds, is to commit $10 million over the next 5 years in addition to what we're expending. And we know as a city we can't do it alone. We need to partner with organizations that are doing good work. In fact, earlier today, and I just want to extend my thanks to Benita, who helped to organize it. And just so you know, it's Benita's birthday today. And she's been in meetings all day. So happy birthday to you, Benita. Happy birthday to you. But as many of you know, through the Bloomberg Harvard work, we zeroed in on 0 to 5. Because as you know, the city of Pomona spends a lot of money on the back end. And in my view, by not investing on the front end, is to make sure that our children have the opportunity, no matter what street they live on or what neighborhood they live on, they have an opportunity to realize their full human potential. And so we convened at the Dawes Center for the Arts, organizations, the school district, community-based organizations, parents, around this 0 to 5. But we know that it's not just about 0 to 5. There are kids who, of all ages, that are facing serious mental health issues, family issues, community issues, friend issues, addiction issues. But I only point out this effort that happened, that's been happening, where we met this morning to talk about what the city can do to improve our outcomes, to improve the opportunities that our children have. And so it happens that in the room was the Hilton Foundation, and the Hilton Foundation is supporting efforts in Los Angeles County and in New Mexico around 0 to 3. And the city, in partnership with UCLA and the school district, is putting forward a grant proposal that I believe begins to look at the long-term impact that needs to happen in order for us to get the results and outcomes that we should expect. I, as mayor, get tired of hearing, well, that's Pomona, that's just the way things are. That's not acceptable. How do you have a problem like, for example, sex trafficking that has been around since I was a kid, over 50, 60, 70 years? I still remember one of my classmates who was gunned down in the alleyway because he was going to testify, innocently had witnessed a crime and was gunned down in the alleyway. As a result, I knew his brother, played Little League Baseball. These are the same problems that have persisted, at least in my lifetime. And it has to change. And so I share that because I know you're going to come up here and you say exactly what's on your mind and what you feel, but I just want you to know that we are committed to working with you to change those outcomes. Because the city cannot do it alone. We cannot solve these, what we call intractable long-term problems by just making a simple policy decision, because if it was that easy, we would do it. We can't just throw money at it either, but we can certainly put more money at it to be more intentional about where the need is. I'm not here to say we have the answers, but I know working together we will. And in fact, some of the work that we have started, not because of us, but the work around pre-arrest youth diversion would not have happened without community organizations coming to us and saying we need to address the issues of our young people who are caught committing what we call a crime and putting them in the juvenile system or prison. Not acceptable. So, again, not coming here because I feel like I have the answer. I'm just putting this out here because I know that this is important to you. This is something that my hope is that we're not talking about these same types of community problems 10, 15, 20 years from now. But I also know that there's kids right now who need support, need help, and we as a city have to continuously work together to do a better job with you. So I say that. Shifting, because I know the council wants to talk about some other things, just wanted to share with you that there's a group of community members that have started to meet. By the way, there are community members who have been meeting on this issue of human sex trafficking for a long time. But there's a small group of folks who live out near Indian Hill and Holt that have come together with myself and other organizations that have been doing work for a very long time in this community around particularly supporting the women who are in sex trafficking. And many of them, some of them are minors, some of them started when they were minors. And so we had a meeting on Saturday. I just want to let you know that those meetings are every first Saturday of the month at Montview Elementary. If anyone has an interest in learning more about this work, there's an update portion of it in terms of the work that we're doing as a city, but there's also more of a working group that is trying to figure out how we might effect change, how we might come up with solutions to address that issue. And then just lastly, I'd like to, James, if I can ask you, and I spoke to Kirk about this, I'd like to bring forward a discussion item as soon as it can, but certainly want to be respectful of staff time on a project labor agreement. This is something that we've been talking about for some time, and I know that we've had some good conversations, but rather than putting it as an item to make a decision, I'd like to bring it back as a discussion item so that we can explore. We know that there's obviously a value to this, but we know there's some challenges, but we want to make sure we get to the right place should we decide to move forward with that. Okay? All righty. With that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Councilmember Garcia, and Councilmember Torres, and then Councilmember Preciado. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to shift the tone slightly for a moment, I would like to thank Clean and Green Pomona, as well as the 50 youth volunteers from the School of the Arts, as well as the Gary High School AVID program for coming out to District 3 on January 28th to plant 35 trees. 50 volunteers, 35 trees, less than 45 minutes. I provided the donuts, and I'm very happy to do so. Our youth is wonderful and beautiful and so full of potential. So I really appreciate that and look forward to planting trees at Lincoln Park. I would also like to remind everyone that we have Play with Clay this Wednesday at the Pomona Public Library, hosted by Amoka. Please bring your kids out, have them have a fun, interactive moment. But I do also want to touch on what the mayor just said regarding our youth. As a teacher, I see the struggles that our young people go through every day. There is a serious mental health crisis in our country. As I was telling the mayor earlier today, I feel like everyone just needs the biggest of hugs. There's so much emotion, anger, hopelessness to process out there, and I see it every day with my students. In some groups more than others, and it really brings sadness to my heart. So as I told the chief, who has been very open in communicating with me about the lives lost in my district 2 weeks ago, every single family and person involved in these incidences is a victim of something. Their lives are physically ended, mentally ended, families are torn apart. Everyone loses in these situations. Our communities lose, their families lose, they're changed forever. So I thank the mayor for reinstating our commitment to make this better. I was just thinking as he was speaking that 4 of us up here are both Pomona born and raised for all intents and purposes. We've all gone through high schools here. We've all have friends who have made not the best of choices, and 4 of us are lucky enough to be up here, and I think several of us are lucky enough to be raising our children here, to have raised our children here and attending Pomona schools. I do want to thank Project Hope for meeting with me last week to discuss their wages program, and I'm going to pull up their definition of the wages program very quickly right here. The wages program is the Work and Gain Education and Employment Skills program, which prepares justice-involved youth and young adults for employment through education, training, paid work experiences, mentoring, and leadership development. If you know of a TAY or a young person who is available, who could benefit from a program like this, please let me know. Project Hope has committed to communicating with them in a day or two to really deal and help them deal with whatever they have to go through to re-enter a positive path in their lives. I also want to thank Pomona PD for helping us get our Cal VIP program underway, hopefully in the next few months to a year. One of these timelines, we'll be able to get that here in Pomona, but I agree with the mayor. And I want to acknowledge a comment that some of my constituents have made. We must absolutely do something to keep hands and assault weapons out of the hands of young people. But in my mind, most importantly, we need to find a way from preventing them, the mentality that having that gun in their hand is the only option they have. And that is I think, what we've been fighting against for years and years. They can't just see that as a solution, and that can't be the only solution that they can find. Something else must be done. So thank you to Just Us for Youth for helping our young people. Thank you to Project Hope for continuing to help our young people. I believe I saw Gente Organizada in the audience. Thank you to you guys as well for doing that work. And we must all work together to make sure that this is solved. And I'm talking about true, open collaboration and not just saying we're going to do it and not do it. We have to set down our own barriers, our own walls, our own misgivings, and really come together as a group, all of us, for our young people. So thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak, and thank you again for reiterating our thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Councilmember Torres and then Councilmember Preciado.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Mayor, for the passing the baton over. One of the great things about Pomona that I witnessed growing up as a kid and being on the city council is, the fact that we have so many great organizations and people in the community that do come together during difficult times. When I was growing up, there was a little kid, Ethan Torres, that got shot and killed, small kid. And obviously, when I first got elected to the city council, there was the young boy, Ethan, that was killed as well. And it's a major issue here in the city. And does require investment into the youth. And what does that investment look like? What does the youth want that to look like? It's one thing that, we've been working on, and I've been talking to the city about is, one thing we applied for last year was we applied for a grant with the United States Congress to get $4 million for the La Casita Teen Center at Palomar's Park. And I've been holding on to this information for about a month or two, but since the city had found out about it, I just wanted to tell people, because they've been asking, is that we will be receiving $4 million from the federal government to invest in Palomar's Park Teen Center, La Casita Teen Center. And just like the mayor was talking about, that's the type of investment we need in the community. My mother, when she was on the city council, she built a skate park, and she built that La Casita Teen Center. And one thing she did was she included the community in those discussions, and she invited the youth out. The youth designed that skate park. It wasn't the staff, it was the youth that designed that skate park, and the youth that recommended what type of education programs go into La Casita Teen Center. So fast forward to today, one thing I think we should do is engage the community and ask the youth, what do they want La Casita to look like? And some people in here want to continue to shake their heads, right? Yes, sir. But the reality of the situation is I want to encourage the community to do not take advice from these individuals. Do not base your political opinions off individuals who represent themselves in those manners right there. Because the fact of the matter is, the city council here, we're really working hard to address the city. Yes, we are, sir. And we have individuals here who I call divisive individuals who represent themselves, and they don't represent this community. And the bottom line is each one of these city council members here have been elected to represent this community, whether you like it or not, sir. So, and the sad part about it is this: we need more police presence, whether you like it or not. We need to hire more police on the street. Yes, we do.
Hey, real
The
quick.
fact that you have a few officers patrolling the street at one time is flat out dangerous. And if you talk to the residents of Pomona, they want more investment in public safety. And if you knock on that door, Jesus, and you tell them to defund the police,
Okay,
they
hang on.
will
Robert,
throw you out.
This is about me, dude. I'm just fucking responding to your
Robert, Jesus.
Kids are fucking dying, and you're
Hey,
making
Chief.
this about me, you fucking idiot.
Chief.
What's
Hey,
fucking
Jesus.
wrong with you, dude? You haven't done shit.
Robert.
There's been
Robert.
kids coming in here for 5+
Jesus.
years. You haven't done shit.
Jesus.
Fuck you, Tim. You haven't done shit either.
There's a big
No one
Chief, I want him
wants to do
removed.
shit.
I want him removed.
And
Yeah.
that's the message here tonight. All of you haven't done shit, and kids are fucking dying.
I met with you 2 weeks ago.
Fuck you. That's not enough.
Oh, see, we can't work together then.
Transparency is
Yeah,
an issue, and it starts with
yeah.
the chief.
Chief, I'd like to ask this. Jesus, you,
So, in your
Hey,
comments, you
listen.
had to come
Let's take a
at
break.
me.
yeah, we're gonna take a break.
Let's take a break.
We're gonna take a break, folks.
Dude,
No, you
Don't
made
you-
it about me. You made it about me, Bobby.
don't be flipping people off. Don't represent yourself like that. And if you're the type of person that likes to dish it out, you better be the type of person that could take it.
City manager doesn't give a shit about these kids.
All right.
in Pomona.
Chief, very respectfully, I'm gonna ask you, you have a right to speak. So we have one more speaker on the council that wishes to speak, Councilman Preciado.
I want to speak on the same item. I'll stick to what I wrote. Yeah. First of all, thanks to all the speakers who came out today. I look forward to hearing you, and I pretty much already want to say I support your comments. And I understand that we are doing things as a council, but I also do believe that we could do much, much more in identifying some of those, sitting down on some of those that I believe can't wait. Should have probably. I've asked for a couple of things. I'm grateful for the things that we are moving forward with. Yeah, I'll concentrate on this. I'll start off with that. When I first found out about the killing that happened in South Pomona, I took a screenshot of it, and it's been with me, and then as well as the Montclair ones. And I was just like, man, this just happened right after Monterey Park. This just happened right after Half Moon Bay. And I know that these youth or young adults probably won't even get spoken about it anywhere on any type of media or anything like that. But I know for me, they've been with me in my head this entire time. And so I just want to tell people, please don't get used to these deaths, these murders. I believe some people already have. But I always ask that you keep it at the forefront, like bring it back. Don't get desensitized from it. Don't find ways to excuse it. I've heard many different things, whether they were actually Pomona kids, whether they weren't. I mean, the fact of the matter is they were killed here, whether it was gang violence or whether it was a targeted event. I don't know. To me, it's still a life that was lost here in the city. And these deaths and murders have resounding effects. The one in South Pomona was at a young adult's birthday party. My nephew and his brother were supposed to be there. I can only imagine about those kids that were there and witnessed, as I was told, is the individuals walked into the house. Nobody even stopped them or checked them or knew. And then as well as in the front yard. The neighbors, the kids there, the parents of everybody there, even for people who were going to be there, now those parents there, it has resounding effects and trauma that, I mean, if it's even been said, inner city kids have, or in families have more PTSD symptoms than even those that are signed up in the military. Something I want to caution, and something I was thinking about a lot was this assumption of having time. We will do this in time. We can do it in time. And the more I'm on this council, I always think it takes so much for things to be aligned in the right way, and then they can shift a whole other way. And then you have to have so many pieces that I don't want to say that we have time. I want to just do it. I can look at the last 3 years, and I remember I've said this a comment about 2 years ago when Eric was taking a mental break, because I can only imagine what he's going through being there at the forefront every single time. Eric, my respects to you. But in the last 3 years, over 15 plus kids, youth that have been killed. Any death is too much. Please keep it at the forefront. My love.
Thank you. Because in a moment we're about to move into public comment, and everybody who has taken out a speaker card will have an opportunity to speak 3 minutes. You will be given your opportunity to share your thoughts. Obviously, there's a certain decorum that we have here in terms of how we respect each other. I realize people have a range of views, but we just ask that be respectful and know that the main message is, despite what sometimes people hear, is that we want to work together. We're committed to working together. And we're going to continue to work together, particularly with residents, community, and organizations that are willing to work with us. And we're committed to doing that. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Rosalia, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Next item on tonight's agenda is City Manager Communications, and these are reports from the City Manager.
Okay, nothing to communicate? Okay. Alrighty, let's go ahead and go to the next item.
Next item is public participation. At this time, the public is invited to address the council concerning any items not on the agenda. Together, the city council members, city staff, and public honor Pomona's important city meeting values, to speak and to listen to everyone with respect and courtesy, to honor fairness in our cherished democratic process, to affirm Pomona's dedication to lead as a compassionate city. Thank you all for keeping these values and this commitment to act with them ever present in our minds as we proceed with the meeting together. In order to address the city council, each individual must fill out a speaker card, which is available in the lobby of the council chambers. Speaker cards must be completed and turned in to the city clerk at this time. Only those speaker cards turned into the city clerk will be allowed to address the city council. No late cards will be accepted. Each person should state their name and will be allowed to speak once for 3 minutes. All speakers and persons in the audience must adhere to the city council rules of procedure and decorum.
Okay, we have about 15 speakers, each have 3 minutes. And so what I'll do is I'll call 2 names. The first name I'll call is, and forgive me if I can't read a name simply because sometimes writing varies. And so I want to be incredibly respectful. But the first name is Terry, and the first initial for the last name is B. I don't know if it's Boden or Bowden, but forgive me. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar? Terry? Is there a Terry that wishes to speak? Terry? Terry? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. In terms of discussion, if you could just give your speaker card. Is that your speaker card? Okay, I'll call on you in a moment, okay? If I can get Eric Vasquez up to my left here, and then Steven Yorba, you're thereafter. Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. If I don't get through this, I have others to help me finish my comment, but I want to offer my condolences to the family and to anyone else who's been impacted by these tragedies. Over the last couple of years, we've lost many people, young people, and I want to take a moment to read their names aloud and to remember them and to honor them. But to also allow their lives to move us forward together. Be mindful that every one of these young men were under the age of 25 years old, and I don't even name some due to privacy requests. A. Gonzalez, all of these young men were murdered. A. Armenta, G. Walker, A. Esqueda, A. Aguilar, J.L., N. Higgins, K. Castro, R.H., J. Mora, J. Serrano, P. Nephews, R. Nephews, O. Espinosa. The following have died by overdose: A. Davila, A. Martinez, A. Lopez, A. Solorio, J. Flores, J. Mendez. The following were death by suicide: M. Karkova, Y. Manico, and A. Hardy. I could say a lot of things, but I've called a lot of you all personally, so let me just stick to this. Tonight, I'm here to stand together with the community in solidarity. We got to ask ourselves, how will these losses of life call us to action? I want to acknowledge the good things that the city is doing. You mentioned a handful of them: pre-arrest diversion, violence prevention through CalVIT, Bloomberg, Harvard Initiative for 0 to 5, youth sports, grants being offered to CBOs like us. And I know that we have a long-term strategy for care for our children, but I believe that times like these demand us to act more urgently. And here are some recommendations to take some urgent steps forward. And I want to explicitly state with respect that I am not asking for more policing, but I am asking for a compassionate and restorative approach. Firstly, that we would quickly finalize the shared use agreement with Pomona Unified so that school gyms and facilities can be made available to youth by March. I ask that quickly we activate unused teen centers and community centers through partnerships with CBOs, places like Kennedy, Renacimiento, Willie White, you mentioned La Casita. 3, activate other unused city-owned buildings to provide CBO space, to provide programming for improved workforce development opportunities, but specifically innovating for high-promise youth that are slipping through the cracks. And 5, continuing to improve parks, especially skate parks and sport equipment. And of course, I'm at the table. I'm available to you all, and you're gonna hear from a lot of the young people today, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Stephen Yorba? Welcome, Mr. Yorba.
Thank you, council and community. Condolences to all affected by these tragedies. I rise tonight in solidarity with any collective effort that is meant to address real, measurable change around the well-being of our communities, especially our youth. Related to this, I want to offer an expanded understanding of the place and role of urban farming in our city. At Lopez Urban Farm, we live by 3 fundamental principles that are faith, justice, and relationship. We provide a space where all 3 of these can be practiced in measurable ways. We are cultivating a safe place for our community, not as an escape, but as the context for real change. An urban farm provides an opportunity for folks to explore new ways of being, a place to nurture new ideas, test alternative ways of living, and providing a launching off place for justice making. Do not be fooled by our docile appearance. Our work is subversive, radical, and revolutionary. We seek nothing less than the continued transformation of our city into the fullness of its potential. We demand a compassionate way forward in dealing with these complex issues that face our city. Compassionate, not as a passive, submissive gesture, but as a constructive way of getting things done collaboratively, seeking restorative justice for our most vulnerable. I want you to imagine tonight for a moment our at-promise youth in Pomona empowered to build their own half-acre farm. Imagine them with shovels in their young hands, tending beds teeming with fresh vegetables, fruits, flowers. Imagine them in that context, learning how to care for earth. Imagine their time spent learning how to cultivate life. Imagine the personal change that would be possible. Urban agriculture has the medicinal power to create such an experience. I want to say tonight that these images are soon to be reality. At present, Just Us for Youth and Lopez Urban Farm are working on a possible partnership, making this a reality. A working farm and green space created by and for our at-promise youth here in Pomona. I hope you will help make this and future projects like this an active part of our city planning, our parks planning, our family and neighborhood planning, and any future master planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Artie, just want to be respectful of everyone. I typically, we can certainly clap at a lot of folks who are going to be speaking, but I'm going to ask that to the degree that we can, if we can refrain so that we can keep this going, but we are listening to what you're saying, okay? With that, Jeanette Ellis Royston. I know she was here, but she may have left. Okay. Ronald Copeland. And then Arlene Alonzo after Ronald Copeland. Welcome, Mr. Copeland.
Welcome to me. How's everybody doing tonight? This is my first time being at one of the council meetings. I'm a former Pomonian. I moved away probably about 2 years ago, but I was here probably about 25 years. I was used to be part of the problem until God touched my life, changed me around. Now I go into the prisons. I minister in the prisons. I've been doing that probably about 18 years now. And, I talked to God and I said, God, I've been going into the prisons, dealing with a lot of the elderly and older guys. I want to deal with some of the youth. So I prayed. The next day or two, God hooked me up with Eric. I had met him probably about 4 or 5 years earlier. But talked with him, told him, hey, I got a limited time. I don't know exactly what I can do for you, but point me in a direction, use me however you need to do. So I've been helping him for the past almost year now with the youth and getting involved with the youth here back in Pomona. Like I said, I've been away for 2 years, but God has had me here the past year. Look like I'm living back here again. But I'm here to just let you know, God is looking down on you. God is looking down on this organization and saying, hey, I got you in position. I got you in order to do some things. Whatever you can do to help these organizations out, you need to do it. We're not here to complain or point fingers at anybody, anything like that, because you can always point some back at me, okay? But we're here to just help. One of the youth that just did OD'd, I saw some things going on with him, and so something just told me to try to reach out to him. So I grabbed him one day, hey, let's go out to lunch. I had a little bit of time between work and going to the prison. So let's go out to lunch. I said, let's do it next week also. I wasn't able to go out to lunch with him as long as I wanted to, but I took him out to lunch. I told him next week we're going to do the same thing. But my schedule changed, so I had to call him like the day before and tell him, hey, my schedule changed, but I guarantee you we're going to do it next week. That same day that I was supposed to meet with him, he OD'd. That hit me hard. Eric called me and told me it OD'd. It hit me hard. So I know God has allowed me to come in and come alongside him and help him in any way possible to help with these youth. I'm going to be here to do what I can, and whatever you guys can do, pitch in and help. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Artie, let's go ahead and call up Marcellus Jordan. Okay, you're up, sir. And forgive me, I did call Arlene Alonso. I know she was here. If she comes, then she can speak after you. Mr. Jordan?
Mayor Sandoval.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Mayor Sandoval, Vice Mayor, esteemed council. Thank you for having me. My name is Marcellus Jordan. I'm with PCS Family Services, formerly known as Project Caring and Sharing. Our director, Senior Pastor Ivory Brown, asked that I attend today on his behalf. Therefore, unlike Pastor, I'll be brief. We've been based here in the city of Pomona since 1987. We are a CBO whose focus is on the betterment of our community by providing the necessary services to ensure the daily basic needs are met, such as food, clothing, employment, housing, etc. We do not provide all of the services ourselves. What we have done is partner with strong network of agencies to ensure that there is no gap in services provided. We would like to see Mayor Sandoval and the City Council form a collaboration of organizations who will work together to help provide long-lasting solutions that will benefit the community as a whole, and thus ensuring a sort of checks and balances so that no single agency becomes self-serving. Our desire is just to see the genuine progress is made. Now, I'll give a quick background on who I am. In 2018, I retired. I used to run the reentry program here. We were partnered with the police department, parole, probation. We had a very successful work program here in Pomona. After I retired and the funding shifted, as with most CBOs, reentry work program was put on the back burner. I've been recently called out of retirement to come back and make that program flourish once again. And not only have I been given Pomona, but I'm charged to start a new location, which I already have in Riverside, and also a location in San Bernardino. So we're gonna spread the program that was successful here when I was running the programs to those other counties as well. The tragedy that happens, it just shouldn't happen. I was raised in the 80s, and I'm originally from Compton. So the gang violence and all that, I mean, I grew up in it. And so I understand the hurt, the turmoil that comes with that. I understand how it has long-lasting devastation to not only those that are alive and deal with it then, but even the generations behind, because they have to witness it and how that affects them, the trauma affects them, and they grow into that same violence because of being victims of what they see, they repeat it. So through my reentry program, not to toot my own horn, but I have serviced thousands of families here in Pomona. Mayor Sandoval, probably don't remember, it's been quite some time, but when we were on the far west end of Holt, you came to our church many times when we had our annual giveaway for backpacks and church, we do through our church, and we do the giveaways. You would show up all the time. We just ask that you consider to make a collaboration of people.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Alrighty, Randy Beckendam, so please come on up. And then Gregory Estel, you'll be up thereafter. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council. All of our hearts are heavy. Emotions are high. But, I'm Randy Beckendam. My daughter Amy and I operate Amy's Farm. Pomona's been like a second home to me my whole life. Currently, I have the honor of working with Eleanor Krasinski, Steve Yorba, Eric Vasquez to promote urban farming. But 20 years ago, Ray Bryden, an agriculture teacher from Chino High, would come to the farm and share stories with me about troubled youth that he was working with in 4-H and FFA. And he said, Randy, it's incredible. I give a youth who's struggling an animal to take care of, or I give them a plant or a garden to take care of. Instantly, something flips in their heads. They become nurturers, life givers. The idea of destroying things or killing or destruction, they want to come home and take care of their garden or take care of their animal and be a nurturer. And he had a lot of success. 3 years later, Ethan Esparza was gunned down celebrating his 4th birthday on his front yard. I called up Ray. Have you seen the paper? He said, Randy, I went to the funeral. He didn't even know Ethan. I said, Ray, we got to do something. He said, what? I said, let's go to the city and promote urban farming for gang mitigation. So we came and we launched Operation Ethan, everyone together, healing all neighborhoods. I'm not here to claim urban farming will solve gang violence. It's what I can do. It's my contribution, but what I am here to claim, every single person can answer the question, what can I do? We have this Operation Ethan brochure. It's around the corner in the thing. I'm just going to read a list of ideas. Adopt a child, mentor an at-risk youth, volunteer at a food bank, glean at a local farm for a food bank, start a neighborhood watch program, help at an afternoon homework club, organize a neighborhood cleanup day, grow food in your front yard, become an urban farmer, start a children's garden in your neighborhood, locate and befriend a shut-in, start a 4-H chapter, support your local farmer's market, grow and tend flowers in your front yard, organize a neighborhood fruit swap, create a local neighborhood contact list that includes birthdays and anniversaries.
Thank you, Randy. All righty. Gregory Estel, you're up, and then Eleanor Crescenzi, you're up thereafter.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the Pomona City Council. Greg Estel, 695 North Gordon Street. I was in attendance on the August 1st meeting when a rental urgency ordinance was voted in by this council. It has been over 6 months, and so, to my knowledge, the housing providers in the community have not been informed of all the restrictions of this ordinance. One of my customers has been wanting to sell his rental property in Pomona for a long time. He has been following the decisions made by Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors and felt he finally had a window of opportunity to sell. In contacting his attorney, he was informed that he has to abide by Pomona's ordinance, even though the city has not let housing providers know that there even is a new ordinance. If housing providers do not know the new restrictions and follow what their legally binding lease agreements outline, they are potentially opening themselves up to severe consequences. It appears property owners can be held accountable for not following an ordinance that they have not even been made aware of. Many of us received our business license renewals in December with a 7% increase. I feel that would have been an appropriate time to inform license holders, rental license holders, of the new restrictions. We received nothing, just the increase. The Claremont City Council is reviewing the needs of their tenants and has invited property owners to have a seat at the table. Pomona residents deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Alrighty, Larry Ortega, you are up after Eleanor Crescenzi. Eleanor, if you'll please come up. Welcome.
Good evening. Today I had hoped to be able to really continue in the vein of acknowledging people who have been making substantial contribution to the community. And I had selected to really celebrate and honor local Pomona resident and activist Yesenia Miranda Mesa, who has been working tirelessly and without really any stop at all in dedication for housing rights here in the city, addressing people at council meetings, elevating the voices and contributions of others, contributing in the gardens, and also directly asking to be at the table, asking to be at the table, asking to be at the table, and not always there. I want to shift a little bit in response to what's happening today. So I'm going to continue my comment the next time I'm here, really celebrating the contributions of Yesenia. But today I want to elevate the importance of the skill of all of you on the dais in listening. It is your role to be able to listen through anger. It is your role to be able to exercise good judgment around funding and not to continue to just do what has always been done when we can see by the results in our community that what has always been done isn't actually resolving the issues of violence in the community. I work every week in the streets with people who are currently living in the streets, and we engage with about 150 to 250 people, making direct contact with people, doing harm reduction, hygiene, food distribution to at least 60 people each week. A lot of these people are also engaged with by the police department. They don't need more policing to help them. Often they're afraid of those resources, but those same individuals will call out to us for help. They will ask us for resources. We've been able to help people get hearing aids, glasses, housing, into programs. We need things that are accessible to the community, and we need to diversify the way that we're engaging the community and consider funding programs that are taking a different approach. There are a lot of CBOs here that are looking for space, that have great ideas, and it's time to start putting some money into the hands of the people. Thank you.
Alrighty, thank you. Mayor Ortega, you're up, and then John Perez, you're up thereafter. And then I have two more speakers, Brent Parker, forgive me, and then the last speaker, Nora Jacob. Welcome, Mr. Ortega.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. My name's Larry Ortega, and my family's been in this community for over 119 years. Current resident of Flanagan Street, and I'm here to talk to you about an issue of high crime going on around our streets in Flanagan and Franklin. But before I do that, I wanted to offer my condolences to all the families that have been impacted by the tragedy of this community in South Pomona. So to continue, we are here, I'm here on behalf of many residences in our street there on Flanagan Street, and we need to get a better understanding of what the police are doing about the crime that's going on. We seek more and better communication with Pomona PD so that we may share and compare notes, what's going on, what we see, what they know. There appears to be a well-organized market for stolen parts and cars in and around our community. The criminals now are unabashed and brazen in broad daylight, stripping cars and leaving them near and around Franklin and Flanagan streets. And many of the response we get is that, what can we do? We can't do anything. There's nothing that we can do. I can't believe that that's where we're at. In August, when I was walking the streets in 2022, my neighbor on Franklin told me that he gets ripped off frequently, porch pirates, he says, causing a major impact on his home. He told me that he showed the police his video that he captured the criminals actually taking his package. The police told him there was nothing they can do. Is that really where we're at? Is that really the last line for us? On January 30th, my neighbor's MacBook was stolen. He has some money stolen out of his car. Just a few days ago, the criminals returned to his car, and they caught on camera, by my neighbor's going to be speaking after me, showed that there was two cars that pulled up, one in front, one in back of him, and literally were about to do something again to his cars. I left you with a note also by my other neighbor, Mike Mendes. His house has been broken in 2 times in just the last month, and the cops are not taking any fingerprints. There doesn't seem to be any investigation. We know that can't be the case, right? We know there's got to be something else going on. And I'm here to ask this council's assistance in trying to get an appointed person from Pomona PD to come to our neighborhood and talk to us about what's going on, and we'll share with them what we know, and let's figure out what's going on. So we need to be working together a lot more. We seek your help in this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, John Perez, you're up. And then Brent Parker. Did I get the last name correct? Yeah. Okay, my apologies. Yeah. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Like you said, my name is John Perez, and I am Larry Ortega's neighbor. And we have seen a high increase in crime in the area. I usually get up every morning to go to work, and every morning I'm calling the Pomona Police Department to run a plate. Comes back stolen. If it's not being left on Franklin, it's being left on Flanagan or Decker. I have cameras in my house. We've caught them coming in. We call the cops. Sometimes they don't come in. Sometimes they don't come. But above and beyond that, I have to extend my condolences for everybody. I've lived here 30 years now. I grew up in an area in Pete Rivera as well. High crime, I've lost a lot of family members. And I can see that what we've been doing is not working. And I think we all need to get involved to help these young kids. I have 2 daughters, some grandkids, and I don't want nothing bad to happen to them. So what is it that we need to do to push you guys or to help us to get involved so that we can stop all this violence, all this stuff, because that's where it starts. It's starting with them coming into the neighborhoods, breaking into cars, and again, right in broad daylight, going into my neighbor's yard. And like they said, we'll call the cops, and like they said, there's nothing they can do unless they get caught. But What is it we need to do to push you guys or to get some new programs so that we can, stop all this senseless violence? Thank you for your time.
Sam? All right, and then our final speaker, Nora Jacob. You're up, sir. Just to give everyone a heads up, going to take a 5-minute break after this, and then we'll come back, okay? Welcome, sir.
Hello, everyone. We have a big transparency issue with the police department, and it's several areas. I mean, the California Public Records Act. We have the head of records. Anything that has anything to do with the police, they pass it along to Corporal Patagan. He's part of the internal affairs, and he's never even read the. He thinks SB 1452, which is a Senate bill. He thinks once it passed that's actually a law, but he doesn't realize that you got to read the code, and once Senate bill gets passed, it gets mixed in with several other items that include Proposition 59, which talks about our right to be able to see what the police department's doing, and that's they're giving denials within the Pomona Police Department policy manual. They're supposed to. When they give a denial, they're supposed to list every single person who's part of that process of denying. They're not. They're giving general answers. Their core values are supposed to be part of, are supposed to include transparency and problem solving. Yet they say because we're denying it because we say so, or some general thing dealing with an investigatory file, which is not right. And, worst case scenario, I get it. They're not attorneys, but, I don't know how hard it would be to, seek counsel with the city attorney to get this information. But this transparency issue is real wide ranging. Let me read my arrest report for music. Suspect Parker began to talk about the Pomona City codes in regards to loud noise. It was strongly, thoroughly explained to S. Parker that we were going off 415 PC, disturbing the peace, which is the state statute, and it's their discretion. I can't even go back in my backyard because I've been trying to get from Chief Ellis an objective measure of sound, and all they're giving me is subjective. And I've contacted him. I've emailed him 3 times in the last 9 months, and each time he's ghosted me like an ex-girlfriend.
Thank you. All righty. If I can go ahead and have Nora Jacob, so please come on up. This will be our final speaker on non-consent items.
Thanks. Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here on behalf of Justice for Youth as the restorative justice and care supervisor to kind of take us to the close of what Eric began this evening. We talked about all the things that are painful, our condolences, our broken hearts for our community. So now we have some specific recommendations that we'd like to ask of you. First is to quickly finalize the shared use agreement with Pomona Unified School District so that school gyms and facilities can be made available to our youth by March. Yeah, it's February. We're asking by March. Justice for Youth and CBOs in the community are willing to run open gym nights to keep these youngsters off the streets. We're ready. Second, quickly activate unused teen and community centers through partnerships with CBOs. Places like Kennedy, Renacimiento, White, Willie White, La Casita, and so on, also by March. my team, the Restorative Justice and Care team, for listening circles, we've been ready for 4 months. So anytime. Activate, the third one, activate other unused city-owned buildings to provide CBOs space so that programming can happen. This will decentralize services, which is important for a city this size, and reach those across the city, again, by March. Fourth, improve workforce development opportunities for youth. Innovate so that we reach the highest promise youth. And finally, continue to improve our parks, especially skate parks and sports equipment. Eric's very clear about making himself available to you. So are we all. There's a chunk of, yeah, just nod your heads. Okay, Justice for Youth. Eric's asking to meet with you. Any others of us from Justice for Youth, we would love to meet with you at our earliest opportunity and yours. And we ask that you consider calling a special council meeting to discuss these things by next week. We know that this is an unusual request, but honestly, it's February already, and we'd like to see this happening in our community by March. Thank you so much.
So, thank you, Honor. And just looking at all the recommendations that you made, I can tell you the joint use agreement with the school district, as I understand it, is supposed to go before their board. The first or second meeting, I believe it's the first meeting for PUSD, which is obviously significant, and we are committed to it. So there's no one on our end that says we don't support that. We fully support that. All the other things, I don't think anybody here on the council wouldn't support any of those. So we certainly can meet, but there's nothing that you said in my mind that would prevent us from moving forward on what you've proposed. So I just want to make a statement. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I think some of the heads nodding will show you that we are committed to taking those steps. And in fact, there's a number of examples in which we've partnered with community organizations to use public facilities, both permanently, but also in terms of recreational use. And we are committed to doing that. So I'd like to get a copy of what you've proposed, and I'd be happy to meet anytime. But I will tell you that we're certainly committed to what you've proposed.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I'm going to be brash, but can we have a special meeting just for this so that the young people in our city have something to hold on to?
Nora, there are 2 meetings in February. Okay. There's a meeting today, and then there's a meeting on the 27th. Okay. There's a holiday. That's the reason why we moved the meeting.
Yeah, that's right.
I am happy to work to set up a meeting, whether it's a study session or a special session, right, with you and the organization. But I want to make sure that we be inclusive of those who are doing this work. How we do it, whether it's a Monday or whether it's another day in the week, I'm happy to work with you on finding that date. But to do it in February, I'm going to have to figure out in terms of, we'll figure it out, right? But it's an ask that you're asking us to respond pretty immediately, and I want to make sure we figure it out first. It might be in February, but it might be March. But either way, what you shared, we're committed to doing. Okay?
Thank you so
if that's
much.
reasonable. I want to respect you and respect your wish. Not that I don't want to meet. I'm happy to meet anytime. I'm happy to meet, even if it's just all of us coming together. Eric, you help organize it with Nora, and let's do it, right?
Awesome.
So we're committed to that, Nora, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, folks.
All right, just obviously this has been a heavy conversation, and so we don't typically do this, but I'm going to propose that we take a 5-minute break. We'll come back. I know some folks will stay, some folks will leave, but we're going to go ahead and do that at this time.
Can I-
Okay? Thank you. for allowing us, maybe allowing is not the right word, but taking the break. All right, and we'll have our city, sir, I'm sorry. You have a great day. Artie, I'm going to turn it back to our city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, our next item is the consent calendar. All matters under the consent calendar may be enacted by a single motion without separate discussion. Discussion or a separate vote on any item is desired by a council member. That item may be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. All consent items pulled for discussion will be limited to 5 minutes. If they're not enacted upon within 5 minutes, the mayor will move that consent item to the end of the agenda after consideration of the public hearings.
Do we have any speakers on any of the consent items? I thought that was the answer. Okay. Any council members who wish to pull the consent calendar item? If not, I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
Move to approve?
All righty, let's do a roll call vote.
Nolte? Yes. Preciado?
Quick comment, Nolte, I'm excited for you and your vice mayor appointment at number 2. And yes is my vote.
Garcia?
Congratulations, Vice Mayor Nolte, yes.
Ontiveros
Can
Cole?
just real quick, can we just make sure that he gets all of the additional responsibilities that he has now as vice mayor?
Absolutely.
Thank you, very good, Artie.
I'm sorry, Ontiveros Cole?
Yes.
Lustro?
Yes.
Torres? Sandoval?
Yes. Thank you. All righty, we'll move to the next item.
Next item is discussion calendar item number 12. It's the finding of public benefit to the community at large, recommended expenditures, and recap of expended funds.
I'll go ahead and move the item. Can I get a second?
Se-
Artie, a tie? But that's fine.
Roll call, Nolte?
Yes.
Preciado? Yes. Garcia?
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole?
Yes.
Lustro?
Yes.
Torres? Sandoval?
Yes. Okay, the next item.
Next item is discussion calendar item number 13. It's discussion and update on fences in historic districts.
Okay, we have a presentation.
We do.
Welcome, Anita.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Councils. I'll be kicking off the presentation, then I'll hand it over to Jeffrey Starnes, our historic supervisor. Not working. There we go. So what brings us here this evening is this is a follow-up, but this is can be a receive and file report for the council to receive this evening or provide additional direction based on what you've heard. Back in January of last year, an item came before you, which was an appeal of a front yard fence within a historic district. Based upon that discussion, there was some ambiguity around the language within the existing zoning code, which essentially said you can have a front yard fence, when it's a new one, it shall not be installed except for matters in public safety. So it left some ambiguity of what is that public safety? When can a front yard fence be installed in a historic district? What is the objectivity and standards related to that? So we spent some time investigating that, and this is a report back of what we found, what the council has opined on, the commission has opined on it, and some of the measures that we've changed to address that issue. So going back from last year, we did a couple methods to survey what the actual situation was, how many fences, what type of fences do we have, where are they located. So we used our interns within the planning division, 2 interns to go out and physically survey all of the sites, including Jeff as well, and survey all of the locations within the historic districts to see what kind of fences we had: chain link, vinyl, block wall, wood. And then based upon that, we also looked at other factors of what might have caused these fence constructions in the first place. Was it crime and safety? Were there issues? Was it demographics, the lot size, traffic concerns, other cultural factors? Like, what was the impetus behind these fences? Were they original to the homes? Were they new? All of those, to try to make a connection of when were these new fences popping up, and to try to triangulate when we might want to identify new standards or criteria to allow them. Here's a map of all of the front yard fences within the 3 residential historic districts within Pomona. And my next slide will show the numbers, but this kind of color codes what types. So wrought iron, again, chain link, wood, vinyl, block, and then no fences. Here's the numbers. So it roughly says 11% of properties within Hacienda Park District had fences. 14% with Lincoln Park, and 30% within Wilton Heights. And then the other chart shows the type. Most popular was wrought iron and then chain link, which is no longer allowed under our new fence standards. And should that be those fences be removed, they could not be replaced with like for like. It would have to be a new material. We also looked at historic photos, looking at our library, our archives, trying to find out, again, some historical practices of what was existing there. And really what we found out that there was no exact connection. One key factor that we could point to that said, here's why community members are requesting new fences within the historic district. It varied quite widely. So we presented all that in May 2022 to the HPC, Historic Preservation Commission, and they asked us to still go back, based upon all that research that we had done, go back and make sure we got public input on the matter as well. So we did. We did that, and we did that by a couple things. We included those conversations in some of the pop-up events that we were doing around the city, around our zoning code update, to get a sense of what people thought about fences in particular. We reached out to Pomona Heritage and Historical Society of Pomona Valley, sent out emails to their memberships to get input. We created social media posts, and we held a public meeting, although the public meeting wasn't that well attended. And then we had 39 official public comments and or emails that gave opinions about what specifically they felt about changing regulations related to fences. Majority of them were yes, some of them yes outright, some of them yes, but with conditions. And 8 saying no indefinitely, don't allow new fences in historic districts. The reasons for yeses were safety, property rights, and yes with conditions was mainly around, yes, we're okay with them as long as you can regulate the height, design, and location of the fences, and or potentially with commission approval. No's really was, it didn't like the look of it, might change the front yard, change the character of the historic area, and like the existing streetscape and or landscaping. So we returned back to historic preservation late last year, and had a lengthy discussion about all of those factors, and the commission voted 5-2 to ultimately allow fences in the front yard area as long as they were appropriately designed. And then we asked staff to then create fence design standards to regulate that. So what we ended up with is a recommendation to ultimately change the zoning code. It is not changed yet. It would be included in the code language that would be brought forward this summer within the zoning code comprehensive update. And that would be to allow front yard fences in historic districts if they meet the design standards that Jeff's going to walk you through in just a moment. And then secondarily, again, those guidelines. So we designed we created design standards and guidelines based on architectural style, and proposed a system of staff level review if they met those standards outright, up to 3 feet in the front yard. And if they didn't, or if they deviated from those standards, it would have to be a major certificate of appropriateness, which would go to the commission for review. And so that is where we ended up, and I'll have Jeff walk you through the standards that he designed, and then we'll be available for any questions. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. So as Anita said, we did some general standards, height, setback from the street, things like that. But then what we really did was take the 6 most common types of wall requests, fence and wall requests that we get. And then we compared it. As we were doing our design guidelines, we identified every style of architecture in the city of Pomona. And so what we did is we took those 6 fence types and we went through and compared it to every style of architecture to determine what's appropriate for what style. And with every historic property, we know what style of architecture they have. So if someone comes to the counter, we can actually tell them this is appropriate for your style of architecture, whether some have one choice, some will have several, as you can see. So in the wood fences, this is one example. We start with, up at the top, there's some actual design standards. Generally, they refer back to other things on the page. We then went through and identified the 5 different normal styles of wood fences, and then looked at which kind is appropriate to which style of architecture. And so, and this is online, so any historic property owner can download this and decide what kind of fence is appropriate for them. If they don't know, they can come and ask us as well. And just another example with stucco walls as well. We do get a lot of requests for plain block walls, which just isn't appropriate, but stucco walls would be. And so we even looked at the type of caps that would be done on a stucco wall, and it varies depending on the architectural style. And so once again, we have standards at the top. We look through the cap types and then to compare it to all the different architectural styles. And then we even, on this one, we actually did a graphic showing each type of cap type so that it's hopefully as easy as possible for the general public to understand, as well as easy for staff. And then so if they meet these, it's, as Anita said, staff can do it over the counter usually or within a couple days. If it doesn't meet these standards, then that would go to the commission. And so with that, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
And then I'll just add 2 quick comments is that these guidelines that you just saw, one, we've gotten a lot of kudos from the State Historic Office of Preservation, and we're one of the very few in the state to have such a comprehensive design guidelines because it's by chapter, it's fences, it's windows, it's roofs, there's several chapters, 5, 6 chapters. And that's thank you to Jeff. And then secondly, we'll be using our $4,000 grant dollars that you just approved on the consent calendar earlier this evening to do public outreach to our historic districts later this spring, not only on our guidelines that you just saw a snippet of here, but all of the new things that we're coming out with in the historic districts, including our context statement, our historic context statement, and all the other things in creating that public outreach campaign. So available for any questions.
Thank you, Anita. Thank you, Jeffrey. Before we do any questions or comments from the council, I just want to see if we have any speakers on this item. And I don't believe we do. No. Okay, great. Thank you. I don't see any hands up, but maybe I can just start us off. First of all, thank you. I know that when we made the decision, it was in relationship to the Chester Place, I think, is what you had pointed out in your presentation. And we wanted to better understand what the individual situation was, and so I think we said send it back to the commission, and this is, of course, what they produced with your support. So one of the options is to do nothing, no fences, which is, if I understand correctly, that's the current rules, if you will.
Unless there's a exception for public safety is the current rule.
Okay. And the other is to accept the recommendation just as yes, and you could put whatever you want, right? Although that's not the recommendation I'm hearing. And the other is yes with conditions. Correct. How you presented on your presentation, because I was actually, by the way, I was looking at my house, and I think it's a Mediterranean architectural revival or something like that. And stucco wall could be something that, stucco fence wall is something that we could do. That seems reasonable to me, that if somebody, I don't want to, but if somebody decided to, is that it at least has some standards, right? We're not talking chain link fences. I don't want to see chain link fences at all. And we're just talking about a historic district. But if somebody wants to do a design and it falls within the parameters that you set, I'd be open to that. I mean, I don't have any strong feelings. I don't accept the yes and no, just build whatever you want. That I don't accept. So I like the recommendations that have been made by staff and the HPC. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll turn it over to Councilmember Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. As long as our Historical Preservation Commission as well as the Historical Society are behind you, I have no problem, and I'd move to approve, receive, and file, and without further instruction, move this along.
Because you asked for direction, so I think the direction probably would be how much did we give you? A whopping how much?
The state gave us $4,000.
Oh, the state. So the city didn't give you anything, right? And you're going to do some
outreach,
community engagement and so forth. Yes. Obviously, there's more to be learned, and certainly we want to take into consideration their thinking, because we captured a certain number of people. We certainly didn't capture, and we're not going to capture everyone, I realize that, but I think that's a good use of the time moving forward before we actually make a final decision. Councilmember Lestro?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you for developing those standards. I looked them over in the agenda this weekend and looking at at least a few of the more common architectural styles and what fences would be appropriate for those homes. Absolutely agree with staff's findings, and I think that in the case where somebody might want to do a fence, that the recommended styles I think would be appropriate and could potentially be an asset to that particular architectural style. So thank you.
Marty, and anyone else other than Vice Mayor Ana Rose Cole? I realize she's in transition, but we'll for this meeting we'll call her Vice Mayor, and then we'll start calling the Honorable John Nolte Vice Mayor for the next meeting. Vice Mayor.
I just have a question. So this is just in regards to the historic district.
That's correct.
So anybody that's not in the historic district doesn't have to go through all this?
That's correct.
Thank you. Just want to make sure about that.
Okay, we don't have to take this
But
as a
just
receive
for
and
clarification, you still need a permit to build a fence or a wall.
Yes, you need a fence and wall permit, which is free through the planning division. Anything larger than 6 feet generally needs a building permit as well.
And one more thing. So a chain link, even though
Not permitted.
it's not historical. Okay, because people are asking me, how come we took away the chain link? We can't afford a block. We can't afford a wrought iron. So, okay.
Not permitted.
So I think the direction is clear. We are thankful for what you've put forward, and take it back to the community, and let's get some input, and let's bring it back.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you. Oh my, alrighty. Let's see. We move on to the next item.
Do we want to go ahead and take a roll call?
And by the way, it's barely 9:12. But it doesn't feel that way just because it was.
It's a heavy meeting.
Yeah, it was a heavy meeting, particularly at the beginning, understandably so. So we have Andrew Mowbray.
Well, do you want to go ahead and take a roll call on the previous item? We did have a motion by Councilmember Garcia.
I don't think it requires a motion. It was
Just
just,
receive and file?
you're just looking for direction, and it was a receive and file, so we don't need to take action on the item.
Thank you.
Okay. But I always appreciate those motions, particularly from Councilmember Lustro and Garcia, who are
Move it along. Move
fast.
it along.
Alrighty,
Move it
Andrew, you're up. Welcome, Andrew.
Good evening.
Good evening, Andrew.
Just getting my notes out. All right. Okay, so good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the consolidated physical policies and procedures adoption of via resolution. As you may recall, this item was brought forward to you on December 19th last year, along with the updated 10-year financial forecast provided by UFI. At that time, you received and filed the 10-year, as well as gave direction to pursue a 115 pension trust. After discussion, the council requested that the item go back to the Labor Subcommittee for further discussion. And on January 11th, the Labor Subcommittee met and received feedback regarding the proposed policy documents that includes both existing and new policies. This presentation tonight takes an approach of highlighting and explaining the main areas of the physical policies that will be funded annually as the city works towards continuing to build its financial strength and stability. So let me just jump into the presentation. Okay, so just a recap before you tonight, we'll be amending the current fiscal sustainability policy, amending the current fund balance policy, developing new council policies and staff administrative physical procedures that currently exist, just building them into this cohesive document, and then providing follow-up to the December 19th City Council meeting regarding the policies. Just to recap, policy versus procedure. Policy require action or decision by the City Council, more high level in substance. Procedures requires management decisions, and are usually put together within departments. So just reminding you of the scope of work that we did with UFI. We started with the current city policies, incorporated new ones in, updated language to reflect the city's financial objectives and goals and specific changes. We amended or added language where appropriate, referring to organizations like GFOA, ICMA, and CSMFO, as well as rating agencies and bond insurers. The focus of tonight, again, as I talked about my introduction comments, is we're going to talk about the contingency fund balance. As we all know, it's 17% now, and we're seeking direction on a new percent. We got some good feedback from the Labor Subcommittee, so we'll discuss that. The Catastrophic Events Reserve, we'll talk about that. New policy, pension and OPEB funding policy. We'll touch on the budget and fiscal sustainability, just reminding you that's basically being carried over from our existing policies. Capital improvement, already an existing policy as well, and equipment replacement, an existing policy, but we're suggesting some new contribution limits to reach that long-term goal, and then talk about our unassigned fund balance, or also known as our surplus. So looking at this slide right here, this is going to be the format that we put together to look at each of the policies. So first, looking at the economic contingency reserve, or when we always refer to the fund balance in the city. As you all know, the current policy amount is 17%, has been for quite some time. That was the ultimate benchmark goal created with the fiscal sustainability policy that was first adopted in 2011. The proposed policy, based on feedback from the Labor Subcommittee, is that we're suggesting to bring it to a goal of 22% with incremental changes, eventually reaching 25%. So going on to the next slide gives a little more detail of using that similar benchmark approach we used with the original 2011 fiscal sustainability policy. So again, this is a recommendation at this time. Okay, I'll move along. Catastrophic Events Reserve. This would be, again, this was not a current policy. This is something new. We'd like to bring this amount to $5 million ultimately as stay in the policy, but we thought an initial $300,000 contribution would be a good starting point, increasing it future years till we eventually get to $5 million. This would be used for unforeseen damage, claims, liabilities. We're talking earthquakes, major disasters. So we'd have, if this ultimately reached $5 million, this would be on top of our, the suggested 22%. Pension and OPEB funding policy summary. Again, you did give us direction to pursue a 115 trust, so we'll be working in the next year on pursuing that. But with the pension policy, it's a funding goal and target. We've already enacted a lot of the funding strategies with the POBs that you adopted and approved in 2020. Talk about use of one-time monies or annual contributions, base selection strategy, and super funding, all key terms in those policies. Looking at each one individually, the pension 115 trust funding, our initial goal would be to contribute $1.5 million initially to get that started, and then $500K annually thereafter. Again, that'd be paying for future UALs that the city takes on for its pension. Right now, the OPEB, we're just suggesting a pay-as-you-go system, so we just incorporate that in the budget each year. Down the road, we may come back to the council to suggest doing a similar trust with the OPEB, but you can't do a pension and OPEB combined trust. They have to be individual trusts. So we thought we'd start with the pension first and then work on the OPEB down the road. Just a reminder, we talked about fiscal sustainability policy. Did not remove any of our budget adoption administration policy summary. I brought forward the budget kickoff to you last meeting. So a lot of these items in our process are consistent with our budget principles that we bring forward every year. Bringing you a schedule, long-range planning. We have the 10-year forecast that we've brought forward with UFI. We hope to bring that forward, or we will bring that forward to you each year to keep track and project long-term. and then just annual budget administration, collecting revenues, grants, our user fee program, and regular budget amendments that get approved per council action. And then, of course, budget reporting in the form of the first quarter, mid-year, and those type of reports I bring forward to you each year. Fiscal sustainability, just reiterating, it's not going away. It's just being incorporated into this consolidated document. Capital improvement policy summary. We've had that. That's not really changing from what it is in the current fiscal sustainability policy. But looking at the specific amounts, the 1% of adopted revenues, that's actually the current policy, but we struggle to do that every year. So we really want to make a dedicated effort working with Public Works and getting 1% of the general fund revenues in CIP every year. But our initial goal that we would like to bring forward is 0.5%. One member of the committee did suggest maybe going as high as 0.75% this year. So again, a lot of this, when we get into the scenario example or the hypothetical example, we'll talk about the contribution limits and how we plan to bring that forward to you as part of the proposed budget. Equipment replacement funding, similar to the CIP. It's been in the fiscal sustainability policy, but we haven't had a specific goal amount. We have been making contributions towards it, but we would like to make an effort to get at least $100,000 a year, initially increasing that to $400K to build up that fund and get a vehicle replacement, equipment replacement fund going to annually replace based on a useful life of vehicles and equipment. And then the unassigned fund balance surplus, we had a lot of discussion at the last meeting, so I wanted to point this out. And so when we have these surpluses each year, or we have had these last few years, we may come forward and recommend using those fund balances towards long-term items such as OPEB, bond debt, lease obligations, or facility infrastructure improvements, equipment purchase. So basically these policies that we talked. So this would be money on top of that. But I just want to reiterate, as the language states, the city manager may recommend. That means it doesn't mean you're approving that this is going to happen. And if we did bring this forward, we'd have to bring it via resolution for your approval. And then when we say the city shall attempt to achieve this following balance, again, this is a suggestion of a way that we may bring forward, a suggestion to use a fund balance if we did have one at the end of each fiscal year. So I thought this was really useful when we met with the labor subcommittee. It's a hypothetical example, and I'm going to stress that word probably as many times as I can, because these are not real numbers that are footnoted with the footnote number 1. I know it's a little small in this, but this is, I do not know what the 23-24 budget is right now. I picked a number of 151, which is about $10 million more than our current budget. Again, I do not know anything at this time. But I did use the actual fund balance of the last audit, $49.7 million. And I just said, maybe at the end of this fiscal year, again, not knowing anything yet, that we could have a $2 million surplus, let's say. So then we'd be up to about 51.7. Then I take what I'm projecting, or hypothetically a $151 million budget. Those items on the right under that column that says annual contributions would be built into that 151 million. So that'd be for the catastrophic event, the equipment replacement, the CIP, the trust. The recommended amounts for year 1 would be about 2.65 million. The goal amounts are on the far right. So you can see the CIPs. That would be the 1% amount, and the 755 would be the 0.5% amount. The trust, you can see, is about $1 million difference. So again, this is all just for discussion purposes, but to give you a visual idea. But if this all happened and went through smoothly, you'd see our fund balance percentage would still be about 34%. If we adopted the goal of 22% goal fund balance. That'd be equivalent to an amount of $33.2 million, which would leave over a surplus amount of close to $18.5 million. So again, hope this hypothetical table helps you visualize everything I talked about tonight. I think the Labor Subcommittee received it well, and hopefully it helped everyone else. And so just in conclusion, these policies and procedures require approval via council resolution. Want to stress the annual amounts will be presented for city council approval as part of the budget process if you adopt these policies. And then again, the unassigned fund balance for one-time expenses would also require city council approval. So I just want you won't approve this policy and then all these things will happen without your approval. This is just policy set forward to guide the city to gain fiscal strength and stability, but everything will be ultimately approved by you and decided by you based on our recommendations in the future. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Andrew. Before I go to Councilmember Garcia, can you tell us with certainty what our surplus will be this year? I know you were operating in hypotheticals, but I know that you're a pretty good prognosticator.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, Andrew.
We'll be conservative.
Yeah. And that's his line every year. And we'll just keep saying that,
yeah,
so that we can be surprised at the end. Councilmember Garcia.
So about the $3 million I'm getting in 2023, 2024.
The $3 million.
There's a lot of humor that is a part of our response to you, Andrew.
Sorry.
So that's why Councilmember Garcia mentioned
I mean,
the $3
just let me
million.
know. I already have my list.
All
Renee,
right.
get a pen out. I really want to. I want to thank you. I think you took all of our concerns and comments from our last meeting and really brought it to the Labor Subcommittee and created a wonderful document that we can get behind. I do want to express support for the 0.75% CIP project initial now rather than later. I do understand why the 0.5%. As you said, we are trying to be financially sustainable and fiscally responsible and conservative in our numbers. But I would support the 0.75% now rather than later. That's really all I have to say. I know that we have some other budget items coming before us, and I look forward to seeing them. But thank you for this. Oh, I lied. There's one thing. At some point in 2026, when we reach the 25%, what if we're doing incredibly well as a city, and we are consistently saving more than that 25%? Is there at any point going to be a question of coming back to council and saying, maybe we should bump this up by another % or two so that we can be 26, 27, 30% in fiscal reserves and financial reserves?
I mean, anything's possible, so I'm happy to bring forward it based on council direction.
That is the only time I will ever hear you say that.
Can you deconstruct possible for us?
Yeah.
Thank you again, Director Mabry. I appreciate it. And again, right now, I would support a 0.75% initial savings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lestro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unlike my esteemed colleagues, I'm not going to hold you to any of these numbers. But I support the recommendations, Andrew, that you presented with respect to the fund balance, catastrophic events fund, the 115 trust, equipment replacement. And I thank my colleague, Councilmember Garcia, for advocating for the suggestion I made at the subcommittee to go to 0.75% for CIP. We're just I suggested that I mentioned in the meeting because we're just so far behind. We have so many projects that need to be done and that our community wants to have done and everything. And I think that by bumping it by an extra 0.25%, I don't think is going to break the bank and will give us a little bit more cushion with respect to the one-time expenses of CIP projects. But thank you for all the work that you've done on this, and appreciate your help. And I hope your hypotheticals come true.
We just ask that your next report come back with factual numbers. Thank you, Andrew.
problem.
I'll go ahead and move the item.
Okay.
With the recommendation to do the 3/4 as opposed to half.
Second?
Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Nolte?
Yes.
Preciado? Yes. Garcia?
Yes.
Ontiveros Cole?
Yes.
Lastro?
Yes.
Torres? Sandoval?
Yes. Okay. City Clerk?
We are adjourning.
Okay, we're actually going to go back into closed session.
Okay.
So we won't adjourn the meeting, but I don't think we will need to report out, do we?
I would suggest, Mayor and council members, if you do not believe you'll have reportable action this evening, then you could adjourn from here and just let the public know that you'll be adjourning.
Okay.
We could advise the city clerk of the time of adjournment. She can put that in the minutes.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and adjourn. And to our next meeting on February 27th. And we know that closed session starts at 5:30 PM and open session starts at 7 PM. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your evening.